We will call today's March 21st Truckee River Flood Management Authority meeting to order with a roll call.
Donald Abbott.
Here.
Miguel Martinez. Clara Andriola.
Present.
Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Ed Lawson.
Here.
Alexis Hill.
Here.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll have a Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Hill, will you lead us?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Join me in a salute to our flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You'll get me every time.
It's no comment.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item B, public comment. I don't have any cards. Do we have anything, Money? Perfect. Anyone in the crowd?
Recording in progress.
Perfecto. I don't see any public comment. We'll move on to item C, approval of the agenda for March 21st.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with one slight change. On item 4, I'm very interested in hearing the report, but the City Arena, we're not ready to take action on this. We're still getting advice from our staff. So I'd like to just change it to a non-action item. And with that, I'd like to move to approve the agenda.
All right. Well, we have a motion there. Is there a second? I don't see us.
Kingman, Arizona. That's where my son's going to be a doctor.
Okay.
Congratulations.
He's on my side of the country.
Congrats, sir. So we have a motion.
Sorry.
Where did that come from?
Do we have a second on the motion? I don't hear or see any.
Okay, well,
The motion dies.
all right. I don't know what the issue is, but I'll just leave it there.
Can I get a motion for the agenda as presented?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Hill.
Second.
Moving along.
And we can
Oh, yes.
per the law.
Yes. Yeah. We have to notify everybody, and we have to make sure we didn't open any bids, which we didn't.
Okay.
Yes. Secondly, we've had a permit meeting with the Corps, another one, and they have finished all, if not most, if not all components of the environmental assessment. All the information the Corps had to give us for that, they gave us. So we're getting very close to having a complete product for them, because they had to provide us with some information that we had to give back to them. And we're also working on the legal and on the hydraulics. That's been into them now for about 6 weeks. So we're making a lot of progress on the permitting. A lot of face-to-face meetings with the Corps, which we really didn't have until last October. So that's going well.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
So on the, that's great. Glad that you're having really productive meetings. What is, do they foresee a timeline, and are you seeing the federal layoffs being a concern with us getting this going?
I've not heard anything about their layoffs being a problem at the Sacramento Corps. Okay. There is the possibility, and I'm open to the idea, but I'd have to move it through the board, of sometimes with permits, you can give them some money so that they can work on yours faster. So we might want to try that.
Federal government.
No, that's not what we're doing, but it gives them the money to be able to hire, have the staff to be able to actually do the work.
Can you look
So-
into that?
Already have.
Okay, and
So-
you'll be bringing that to the board.
They said really we don't need to do that right now,
Okay.
but if they do, like I said, I've been considering that, and I would bring it to you once they said that that's a factor.
But like a 6-month timeline? for
I'm
approval,
hoping
or-
it's much shorter than
Okay.
that. My mantra to them it's been 5 years. It's time to go. And we did the tribe. That was your major concern. We did the deauthorization. That was your other major concern. Now it should be ready to go. What's left. So hopefully that we move quickly. I'm trying to move as fast as they will move. and putting pressure at multiple levels. So that's
Thank
how,
you. Sorry.
okay, thank you.
Of course.
Number three, I met with the Airport Sustainability Committee yesterday. Also talked with the airport staff. I've been in communication with GSR. They are still moving ahead on some of their design plans. They just gave me something yesterday to look at, so I need to evaluate that. I have looked at it, but I don't, I haven't gotten back to them yet. And I've also had a recent meeting with Tumwa. So I'm trying to set up these other areas for possible design work later as soon as we get some positive information about the permit for Vista, because Vista has a cumulative effects analysis for all the project. So if we get that permit, it kind of greases the skids for these other permits. So it'd be time to probably bring those forward to try to get them into the queue to get to permitting so that we can start constructing on these. That brings me to another thing. We are going to apply for the community grant for that property again. We did not get it last year. I think we're going to have a really tough road here. I'm not going to sit here and be sunshine rainbows with this environment, but we should try, and it's minimal effort because we put in yet last year. We're also making contacts regarding the core loan program. It currently is not funded well for levees. It is for dam safety. And I'm trying to advocate to bring it more up for levees and have that program be a really important program for levee safety. And that's kind of a nationwide advocacy I'm doing. I'm working through lobbyists, I'm working through organizations to make sure that that's appropriated and authorized. It is already authorized, but appropriated properly. It seems like there is an environment for loans where grants are not so much right now. The other thing, last but not least, is last week we interviewed for the Hydrotech position. We had 4 candidates that we interviewed. I'm checking references and I may make an offer depending on how those references go. So we're making progress on that as well. That's all my announcements. Thank you.
Excuse me, can you register? Any questions for Mr. Robeson from him? Don't see none. We'll move on to item 2, consent items. Looking for a motion, or someone wants to pull one, but for 2A to 2E.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Andriel. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll give the second to Ms. Hill. She was quick draw McGraw. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 3, presentation discussion of the draft FY 2025 to 2026 5-year capital improvement plan. Possible action for the capital improvement plan as presented or with amendments, or give directions to staff. Mr. Robeson and Ms. Crowley.
All right, well, I'll start off and Deborah can fill in as she needs to. Why don't you come up, Deborah, in case I get stumped by these guys. So do you have a presentation? There's a presentation for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is similar to a slide I did at the city and the county presentation. It's a little different, but the capital improvement projects involve the flood project and other targeted projects. And the term of art we're using for projects that are not part of the Truckee Meadows flood project are called targeted projects. That we'll get into what those are in a minute, but as far as the Truckee Meadows project, these projects, as you see on the screen there, are interrelated. As you can see there, they're all defending or keeping water in the river from the freeway all the way down to Sparks, except for the area around the university where it is flooding up Steamboat Creek in that area. So it protects the Sparks Industrial Area, Reno Industrial Area, GSR, and the airport. And of course, Rock McCarran in particular, also Vista Narrows, but they also have other spin-off benefits such as recreational opportunities and ecosystem restoration elements to the project. Next slide. So this is an example of one of our targeted projects. Most of you know this well. This is the Riverside Drive. We are trying to work with the city of Reno and the Carson Truckee, I can't remember the acronym, but anyways, the Conservancy District for the Carson Truckee. And this is a targeted project. Our role in this has been, we did some of the initial modeling to figure out how high the berm and wall needed to be. Then the Carson Truckee Conservancy has worked with a consultant to start design on these things, and they're doing the design work and permitting. And then we would fund the construction. And last time we came to an agreement about funding construction of a berm, which is a maintenance activity downstream of Booth Street Bridge. And then upstream, there's a wall, and that would probably come a couple of years later because of permitting. But the berm could be this summer or fall. So it's coming fast, and we're working with Reno on an agreement. We've kind of passed an agreement back and forth a few times, and I think we're making a lot of progress there. Next slide, please. Another one that we've done for years is the home elevation projects. They're mostly centered in the Hidden Valley area. These are areas that can be flooded. You can see that picture from the 97 flood there, how the homes are flooded. Some of these homes can be raised up to 8 feet because of how low they are to the flooding. And we have one home that is currently wanting to be in the program. We have signed documents. We're working on that. And they are going to lift this spring. So there is one that we're working on. This is a very hard program to implement because we have to work with FEMA for tax reasons for the homeowners. Next slide, please. The other one that's a targeted project, this isn't part of the Truckee Meadows Flood Project, but it's a mitigation project. This is the Wadsworth Bridge, and as you heard that we're going to open bids on April 2nd. So this has been through design and everything else, and the bridge would look something like that bridge right there. That's at Dorchester Park, Washoe County. It's longer, it's bigger, but similar type, style of bridge. Next slide, please. So this is our entire CIP project. This is capital projects only. This is not our, regular general fund stuff like where we're doing gauging for monitoring. We're doing monitoring and assessment of some of our past projects. We're doing management stuff where we're looking at the physical map revision of the maps. That's management related stuff. That's not on here. These are just strictly capital projects for design, permitting, and construction. And so you can see the Colonies levy has already been done. Assisting the Grand Sierra, it's sounding like, I had 2.5 million. It sounds like it's going to be far less than that right now. They are moving ahead with their own project. They're talking about a levee now along the face there. And I'm in the room and we're talking, and we may help with the bridges and things like that, but that we're just, they're taking charge of this and doing a lot of the work, both design and construction. But we want to make sure everything's right. And we also have to make sure on the permitting to help them with that, because without Vista Narrows, I'm not sure you can do that project. There's some problems there with, extra flow, and Vista is going to make the water higher and things like that. Not Vista, if you do Grand Sierra without Vista. So there's also the Tumwa levee on the other side. We've been talking with Tumwa about that. There's the airport berm. There's also Rock McCarran that we just finished our alternatives analysis community meeting. We also have the North Bank levee, and we also have the Vista Narrows terracing, which is our next major project that we're working on after Wadsworth, trying to get to permitting and final design. So you can see the costs of this. The total cost of this of all this put together, post-construction, construction, permitting, design, $185 million and change. You add the other targeted projects, that's over $7 million for a total cost of $92,435,000. This is slightly higher than the CIP because this is the total cost of all these components. So if you can turn to the next slide, these are broken out by year, how much we spend each year on each of these. And by the way, this assumes that we are going to get permitted this summer. We will get positive feedback or permit this summer so that we can go to final design on Vista. It also assumes that we will be able to get financing through a loan program or bonding. And I've already been working on that. We're not agendized to really talk too much about that, but I do want to update our strategic plan, and I do have a section on that in there now. So anyways, that year in red there is where we switch over and we use up the money that we have in cash saved up. And it's important to understand, the saving of this cash. Right now, we're around 62 million. And that 62 million, if we had to loan that would become roughly 120 or 130 million that we'd actually owe. So having that money saved up, having 60 million saved up, actually saves us $60 million, basically because of the loan, the financing costs. Because I've been looking at that, with the current interest rate and everything, it's basically double or more the cost of the financing of so it doubles up the actual cost or even a little bit more. So that's our layout of how it works. This is all the same information that's in that state form that was attached to your agenda book, but it's a little easier to understand and read and see. So I just did it this way so you could see them kind of together like this all together and how they compare with each other, etc. Next slide, please. So achieving this CIP, like I said before, I'm making some assumptions. The permitting assumption is one, and you can see some of the terms of this that we're working on. The key thing is underlined there. TURFMA authorization and tribal concerns have been dealt with, and only in the last 6 months. We only had the actual agreement and the letter from the tribe in late October. We only had deauthorization on January 4th. And so those things have been dealt with, and so we're kind of in a new world with the Corps since we've done those two things. So that's kind of where we're at with that, but we're pushing as hard as we can to get this done in a timely manner. Next slide, please. So the other side of this is the financing. So we have roughly $62 million. There is more than that, but not much. But TURFMA currently has approximately a $10 million per year that we can give to capital projects. Our overall input is about 12. Some of that has to go to different things, so it's about 10 million that goes to that. If you look at the cash flow analysis, like I said, the 27-28 fiscal year, so that's July of 27 to July of 28. That's when we would, run out of money with some sort of financing. And we're looking at an infrastructure loan program with USAE. It used to be with the EPA, but they switched it over to the Corps. It was authorized in 2014, and it was changed over to the Corps in the last 4 years. But it's an authorized thing. It's just, it has to be appropriated. We're advocating for stronger appropriation because it can really help us to get these things done in a timely manner. In looking at the engineering of this, because we take so much water away from those areas like the airport and the industrial areas, there is so much water that is coming down that river that you really want to do all these projects basically near the same time. Because you don't want to have one project and then it impacts the other that hasn't been done yet. So we're trying to get this straightened out so we can work at them almost in parallel and get this done. My goal is to get this done by 2030, is to actually have it all constructed and to have by 2027 everything designed, permitting well on its way in 27 on everything. and also to be working on Vista by 27, in 27. So that's the idea here, but Vista does not need any loan, but the rest of this does when you get into the construction. The design work doesn't need a loan either, but when you get to the construction of Rock McCarran and all these other ones, you do need a loan or some sort of financing vehicle. Next slide, please.
A question on that slide, if
Sure.
I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
So on item number 4, in terms of the timing for the infrastructure loan program that you have been explaining, from the time of application, what is the approximate time? I know that you've already mentioned everything you've put into place in order to qualify for that eligibility piece, but from the time the application is in until the time of, what's an approximate time?
The advertised timing is 6 to 9 months, according to the person that runs that. So he said that in a public meeting that I was at, and I asked him off to the side, and he said, no, that's about right. It could take more if you're not ready, if something happens with your application. So, you have to have all your ducks in a row financially.
Gotcha. So what's the anticipated time of submitting an application? Sorry, if you said it, I apologize.
I have not said that. I would think that we would want to be looking at this sometime later next year.
Okay.
Yes, because it's going to pop at 27, 28. And another thing about this particular program, and there are other programs, so I'm looking at more than just this, but this particular one has a 5-year draw. So you're only paying interest for those 5 years. So you want to wait until you're really getting into it, take that money, and then, once you build it, then you go into your payoff period. So you don't want to start too early and then not get everything done. So I would think that you want to have most of it permitted, all of it designed before you're doing it. So we really want to be well along with design and have good cost estimates as well. We have my engineering cost estimates for a lot of this stuff. We need to have really good cost estimates like we have for Wadsworth, for instance. So that's the key there.
Thanks.
Yeah, myself.
On the same line of questioning that Commissioner Andriolo was asking about, are we seeing that that loan program is for a different purpose and we're going to have to lobby to even get for our purpose, right?
No, you're asking an excellent question, and
Like,
this
do
is...
we want to waste the time or do we want to just bond? Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, because it would save us probably 20 to 30%. I think it's worth the effort, like it's millions and millions of dollars. However, what I've heard is they have it done for levies. Last time, they only allocated $5 million for the loan program. And so the idea is you want to, or appropriate, I'm sorry, not allocate, appropriate. And so what you want to do is the minimum's 20 million, so how do you even do anybody on that? So talking with the lobbyists, talking with a group called NASMA that does a lot of lobbying. It's a national group of entities like ours. The point is that we want to lobby to get that appropriated properly. And with the moving away from grants and a lot more favorability to loans, almost bipartisan, actually, I think this is doable, but it's going to take some work. And so that's what I'm working with my lobbyist on, and our lobbyist. And I'm also working with this NASMA group on this as well. And they're advocating for this to be allocated better as well. So, and we've even targeted certain congressmen and senators. I don't want to get in that kind of detail with you. I will privately,
No, that's okay.
but not publicly.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, maybe it's a discussion for this board of when we stop chasing it and when we just buckle down and decide to go the bonding rate. And I think the board needs to have a discussion, when that time comes. Because I just don't want to wait for money that may not happen, even though I know, understand it would save us.
Yeah, and we
I
have
want the project done.
We have a similar issue with the property grant. We're going to have to make a decision on, and we're watching this carefully, what the environment for these grants are. But if this grant is a no-go, then we just probably need to initiate on the property on Rock McCarran as well. That's a similar kind of a thing, right? So, yeah. But I'm thinking 2026 is when we have to really make that decision.
Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, just, I have some larger comments, but just on this one narrow topic. Did you say 5 million for the whole country or per project? And you said grant, but you first also said loan. So could you just explain that?
It is a loan program, and last time in the last fiscal year, they only appropriated 5 million nationally.
In a loan program for the
In a
whole
loan,
country?
yes.
And when
And-
you compared that to
Now-
the state of Nevada, even for a sewer loan program, it's such a small amount. Can't-
Right, but the idea is they want to put this out for 500 million, 700 million.
What do you mean?
And the dam safety part of this does have that kind of financing. The dam safety has several $100 million appropriated
For loans?
for loans, yeah.
Okay.
So it's just that we're talking about expanding into the levy program. And there's a lot of inside baseball here of what's going on. And so I don't want to do all this in public because a lot of this was privileged information, but I can talk to you privately about a lot
Well,
of this.
I'm not asking for a private conversation. I just wanted to understand, if I heard you right, that it was 5 million for the whole country. It's a loan that we would, even if we got all 5 million, we would have to pay back, and I'm sure there's.
No,
a lot of-
I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in getting it appropriated for 27 so that we have that money then.
So we have a grant, is that what you're saying? or-
Loan.
Still
It's a loan.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a $20 million minimum. We're talking about, I'm talking about a $100 million loan. Yes.
Yeah. No, I understand. I just,
Yeah.
it's apparently they haven't allocated it. So, okay.
Okay, is there anything else left? I don't know. Next slide. I mean, I'm asking.
Ties together.
No, it's fine. This is good because it's better, you learn better answering questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just and this will be on our website, on a PDF, but these are just the projected times, and you can see now what we're trying to do. We're trying to get everything done together. So we're tightening this up into this 27 to 29 frame. The north levee wall probably comes right after that, because a lot of that, because of Vista Narrows, it doesn't have an impact. It doesn't make it worse there. So we have a little time to work on that. However, I will propose some initial design work even on that later this year if we get the permit, so that we can get ahead of this. And it would be an alternative study about how to do this, and maybe we break it up because it is such a long distance there on that north bank, and break it up into several projects, maybe 2 or 3 projects. We need to figure that out, because some parts of this existing berm are not that bad. Other parts of it are really low and have breakouts. So we might want to focus on that first. Okay, next slide. I think it's just question. Nope. Oh, this is just the same slide. And next slide, please. Questions, any other questions you
Yeah.
might have?
Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, thank you, George. And I also wanted to thank you for coming to the city of Reno. That's a first in a long time, and I think you were starting to go around. I know there were a lot of questions when you came,
Yeah.
concerns about the progress of the projects, or what comes first, priorities, and making sure there's enough money. I remember Mr. Reese in particular mentioned making sure there was enough money for the recreation in the Mill and McCarran project, or Rock and McCarran as you're calling it. So thank you. I just wanted to start with that. Next, one of your slides, you talked about the Grand Sierra, and I just wanted to make sure I understand, because the Grand Sierra is in front of us right now. We're in intense analysis. They've asked for funding from potential TIF funding, tax increment financing funding, to help expand the Grand Sierra footprint with an arena and other, many, a new tower, affordable housing, lots of things. And so they're under some scrutiny now by our hired consultants. So when you say they're handling this themselves, $2.5 million.
Well, from the flood perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand, but what did you mean? That separate and apart from any expansion efforts, they're moving forward with a design on this?
Yeah, Robeson Engineering, not related, are distantly related. They are working on a design, HDR is involved, and they are looking at a levee along that whole front along the river, which is the old design, actually.
Okay. Do we like that design?
It is the prior design that we've had.
Right,
for
but I mean,
years.
have you looked at it and are you comfortable with it?
I haven't seen detailing enough to make a judgment on that yet. I think it's at the base level, conceptually, it's fine.
Okay.
But we got to look at the details.
And will they, I mean, do they have a team? Are you working with them? I mean,
Yes,
like in regular meetings?
I have meetings with them. We have emails, talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Consultants come to me, on the side. So yeah, I'm involved.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure like that if they're moving ahead with a private project and they're going to fund it, it sounds awesome, that, it fits with what you think is appropriate.
Yeah, I really have emphasized we don't want to, spend $1 billion on a project and then it's floodable.
What do you mean?
Floodable, like it could get flooded in
Ah.
a 97-like event. That's kind of a waste. So that and it protects the airport as well, and it protects.
No, I understand it's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I just want to make sure you're in the loop.
Oh,
and-
absolutely. I
And
am.
that you're looking at the design details. And the reason I ask is that when they came to renovate baseball at the city of Reno, they also went forward with a private project that was originally on the flood project plan. Flood project was originally looking at buying out a motel, which was bought out by baseball. Now, the city of Reno is having to pay $1 million to baseball. I mean, in other words, there's back-end funding here too. So while on the front end appeared private, at the end of the day, probably was public. And I just wanted to basically make sure you're involved and that we know what they're doing and that the design is compatible and is to a high enough level to protect, to your point, okay?
Yeah, and they're using that 2D model that we developed for the PMR as well.
Okay, good.
So they're doing what they're supposed to be doing
Sure.
right now.
Okay, and then I had one more question. I don't know if anybody else has a question.
Go for it.
Okay, you had a spreadsheet for the cash flow, I guess? And I just wanted to understand, when you say July 20, and could you put that up? July 27, 28, we run out of money, is what you said. And so I guess I'm just wondering, so that's based on a cash flow? Let's just pull it up so we can all see what we're talking about.
Yeah, a couple of slides back.
Or forward? It's the cash flow one where,
Well, it's not. It's the year by year
yeah,
cash out.
right. Well, anyway, presuming she gets that up, I just wanted to understand that's based on your
There it is,
expected
right there.
expense, right?
Yeah, you see, there's I think it's 69.
Million,
Yeah, at the bottom there.
Yep.
Yeah, and so because of that, that overwhelms our savings and our $10 million a year going in at that point, because you've already had a $14 million and $31 million hit in successive years.
okay.
Uh,
Well, I think this is important for us to keep our eye on this ball. Maybe when you give a future update on this, you could provide like actual cash flow where you show the 60 million and then the 10 million coming in by year so I guess we'd have 80 million and then what's been expended so we can actually see how much in the red we would be at that point. I assume it's just not 9 million.
That's a great idea, and that is actually in that strategic plan I started, and I'm updating that, and I was going to present that with the budget next month.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, it'll be a separate presentation, but we're doing the budget next
Okay.
month, and then we'll do the strategic
Yeah,
plan.
because I know that you were not able to get the fee, or over the years, the flood project was not able to get the fee, and so this is what we're relying on. And I like the plan, like we've been pay-as-you-go, paying for cash, using cash. But if you want to go into bonding, we have to make sure, obviously, I'm on the Debt Management Commission for the last 10 years, and this is something we always look at is making sure there's coverage ratios, making sure that there's a sufficient inflow to pay off the bonds. So I just wanted to highlight it and put it on people's front burner.
Yeah, and that's something we're working on, and by 26, we're going to have to make a decision. If this loan program's viable, I would love to go this way because it does save a ton of
Sure,
money.
of course.
If it's not, we're going to have to look at an alternative.
And then last question on this, do you think, could you put that back up again? Do you think, I mean, do you have the bandwidth to spend, what is it, 68 million in a year? Like, I appreciate the, to spend that kind of money, even at the city of Reno, like when we did the infrastructure projects like Moana Pool, 45 million. Took us multiple years. We have a lot of staff that are doing project management and that kind of thing. We had a public safety center that was more than that. That had its own project manager and team. Would we have to ramp up or what are you thinking? Like,
Well, this is a philosophy I did when we laid off Mr. Sheets, is that I would like the consultants that did the design to defend their stamp and manage the construction to make sure it's done according to, the sheets and the design. So many of the consulting firms in this area are very good at construction management.
we had some of the best with Core. They did,
Yeah, so
design,
we
build.
we are planning to use consultants to be the owner's representative
Yes.
in construction, and that's what we're doing at Wadsworth.
Mhm.
And that model, I'm gonna learn from Wadsworth some, and we'll perfect that and get better for Vista, and then we'll do that on Rock McCarran. That's the plan. If we need to, if it just becomes overwhelming, we need to hire somebody else, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I
So-
just also wanted to flag that because even with our bench depth at Reno, we have to make sure that we not only have an owner's rep, which is always right, but we also have to have like eyes on the project from the agency, doing all the back checking, auditing, making sure things are happening as they should. It's a lot of money to be spent in 1 year, and so I just wanted to also flag that. Just
Yeah,
regardless of what structure you have, it's a lot for Reno.
Yes, and I will try, we'll see how it goes with Wadsworth and Vista, and, if it's not working out, then we can go to
Okay.
another method.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Excuse me. Any other questions or comments? Item 3, I think that's all you had, right? Yeah, we're at questions already. Well, it has possible action, but do we need to?
Yeah, you need to approve the CIP, because that goes into the budget for next month.
And Mr. Chair, I
Yeah.
think I know Miguel Martinez was planning to join. Has he joined?
Yeah, Mr. Martinez joined on Zoom.
Wanted to let you know.
Do we know at what point he joined?
Yeah, I wrote it down. 9:15.
Oh,
9:15.
Hello, Mr. Martinez.
So,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Perfect. And we are, well, I guess I need to ask for public comment. Do we have any public comment on item 3?
We do not.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You may, we did not read our statement at the beginning of the meeting. If I could do so now,
Sounds good. We can go back in time.
I apologize. Those who wish to make public comment by telephone may do so by calling 1-253-215-8782 and using access code 861-1853-2620. If you are unable to access the meeting with that number, please call Michael Wolz at 775-813-1662. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Mr. Walls. With that statement, is there anyone on Zoom or anyone going to call in? I don't see anyone. Oh, Mr. Robeson.
Yeah, we do have a suggested motion. If the board agrees, the following motion is suggested. This is the same motion we did last year. Move to accept the CIP and attachment 1. I didn't hear any added amendments, so move to accept the CIP and attachment 1.
Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Andriola?
Second.
Ms. Hill? Any questions, comments? I don't hear or see none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 4, report and discussion of the March 12th, 2025 Truckee River Rock to McCarran Reach Flood Project Alternatives Public Outreach Event, and on the selection of a preferred alternative to carry forward into future design for the Rock to McCarran Reach Flood Project. Possible action to give directions to staff regarding selection of a preferred alternative or combination of alternatives to carry forward to the next phase or design. Mr. Robeson.
Okay, thank you. Can we get the slide up? Did you have something, Mike?
Something towards the end of the meeting, perhaps, just to correct on the consent agenda, if you don't mind. So. before
Whenever
we
you
end.
want, interrupt me.
At the end.
Sounds good.
We're on a roll.
Okay. Next slide, please. So as all of you know, we had a meeting on March 12th at the McKinley Arts and Culture Center. It was pretty well attended for a rainy night when we thought it was going to be snowing. And by the time I got to Washoe Valley, it was snowing and it was sticking. But the point is that we did have we had pretty good attendance. I think we had roughly 20 people sign in, but there were more people than that, and there were more dots on the recreation thing than that. And there were a total, I believe, between the two different types of comments, 18 comments. So we did have good participation. What I wanted to do is, many of you weren't there. Donald was there, bald-headed and all, shaved. It's growing back already.
It is.
We did, and we also had Mr. Anderson from Sparks there as well. But, most people weren't there. But what we did is we had these posters. We played our video, which was well received. In fact, people were coming up and asking me, who did this video for you? So that was good. Good for him, I guess.
Did the video.
It was Byron Evans, who also does a lot of videos for Green Vibe. So really, really talented individual.
Yeah.
Anyways, we did the video. Then we said, I gave some short statements. I answered a few questions. Then we immediately went into these posters. So this is an example of our kind of introductory poster about the Truckee River that people got to look at and see. Most of our posters had lots of pictures and lots of visuals, quick bullet points. We didn't want to bog people down too much. Next slide, please. And this was the one that we did. Marty was instrumental in doing this particular slide. But it was to just show the overall flood project. Why we're doing it was down on the left-hand side there with the green and blue. Green comes out of flooding. That's why we're doing this project. Then we also talked about the Rock McCarran project as a component of it. So we're trying to build the context of what we're trying to do here. So I probably talked to 25 people about this at this particular booth, and I was kind of pegged down at the booth, and some people wanted to get real specific on things. And other people had more general, and so there was a mix of that. But yeah, I by the end of the evening, my voice was pretty much gone. Next slide, please. So this one is how we did the analysis. So this JUB did a great job. We have Shane Dyer out there. He was part of the team, but there was a bunch of people from JUB there to answer questions. And this gets into how we did the alternatives analysis, all the things that went into it, what it consists of. And one of the things I want to make sure everybody understands, and I think there has been a misunderstanding, we had a scope for this project, and the alternatives analysis was really focused on figuring out a river alignment and figuring out terracing and things like that, terrace placement, very basic things. And in this analysis, it was supposed to look at levee, river alignment, but there's a particular clause here. This analysis will not be an exhaustive long-term study. Rather, it will be documentation of the alternatives that would be explored during a normal process of design. Documenting this process through the initial design concept is anticipated to fulfill the requirements of NEPA and create a more informed design decision. So this is really, it's an important step for permitting. We also even look at the no action alternative when we do this. So it's important to have the no action alternative. So in the actual scope, they said they would do a minimum of 3 alternatives. They ended up doing 9. And we ended up probably going deeper, a little deeper than I expected on a couple of things. But the idea here is to get make a decision on, do we want to keep the river right where it is? Or do we want to move it down? And do we want to have a more open floodplain, or do we want to keep it constrained? Those are kind of the basic decisions that the alternative analysis has to get through. And what kind of configuration would it be? Would there be side channels? Would it just be one channel? That kind of thing. We had very heavy geomorphology subconsultant working on this to figure out exactly where we are. And you can see that graph right there that Marty brought up. That shows where we are in the river profile. And you can see that the gradient is decreasing rapidly right there. It's right when the gradient first starts to decrease. So it is a transition zone. It is a very dynamic zone. And I kind of saw that the first time I looked at it years ago, and I was like, whoa, this will be interesting. So we decided in our scoping to have a strong geomorphology, and we selected even on that to make sure we had strong geomorphology support. And that was the key, is to get the river alignment and things like that at the first blush, and to make sure that we understand what kind of an alternative we want. Deeper in, we want to solve things like, okay, now that we have this alternative, if we're going to have a berm in between the upland terracing and the lowland terracing, how big should it be? What's the dirt? How much dirt can we use and recycle? How much do we need to get rid of? What is that balance? And that will come in the 30% design. Those kind of questions get answered there. It requires more analysis, and we can't do that for all 9 alternatives, that level of analysis. What we're trying to do is pick a river alignment and then work off that river alignment. So what we have said with all the people involved, all our stakeholders, is like, we want your input. We want to know what you want and what things you're concerned about. And we committed to actually carry out those things in 30% design. For instance, we want to look at the capacity at the bridge. We also want to look at how high that berm should be. And we want to, look at how much it costs when it's flooded, if we have floodable fields, if we have soccer fields that can be floodable. If it gets flooded every 5 years versus every 50 years, what's the difference in cost? So we want to look at all those things, but we want to do it with all the cards on the table, with all our geotechnical out there. We have to do more exploration probably to get better ideas on some of this stuff. So that's why we have, that's why the alternatives analysis is what it is. We are trying to just get that first thing to narrow down these options a bit on the river. And what we decided, let's go ahead and keep going. What we decided after doing this analysis with all these considerations, we had all these different options here. I don't think there's 8 of them up there. I think we did 9, but the one that was preferred was what we call C1, and B1 was very close. And the reason why this is we are in that transition zone. The river likes to meander and braid. It wants to have a meander, what we call a meander belt of some size. It might even want a bigger one than what we're giving it. But we want to give it some room to move around. We also want to have room so that spread it out a bit and have some roughness in there so that we do not have to use heavy-handed treatments. And what I mean by that is riprap. We're trying to avoid the use of riprap. We're trying to use bioengineering techniques, trees, shrubs, things like that to hold it together. But if you concentrate the velocities too much, you can't do that. So we're trying to avoid that. Based on the comments, and I'll get to that in a minute, it was fairly obvious that people do not want us using riprap or anything like that, or tightening this river up too much. but there is, we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyways, so the alternative, next slide, please. These are the two preferred alternatives. Both of those have the river can move a bit. It's moving around. We've moved the river. One thing that was really important that I saw in the analysis was we were very close to those buildings to the north in Sparks. And we didn't really, to build the levee up the way we needed to, we were going to be interfering with those buildings. And we did not want to have that. The easement work and things like that, and people getting mad at us, we just didn't want to deal with that. So moving the river into the property more was a better option than working through those easements. So that was key. That was a key issue. And you can see we had all these different rationales. And when we finalize this report, we're going to have the whole report on our website. But these are just some summaries of some of the key things of why this was a good option. And it's very important. Can you go back up to a little bit higher on this slide and key in on the picture, the plan view there? It's very important to note where it is light green that it's very dynamic in there. No matter what we do, even if we leave the river where it is, when it gets to be a 20,000 CFS flood, it's going all over the place. And you're going to have high velocities. You're going to have very, very high inundations. It is not suitable for anything but a natural or a heavy treatment thing like riprap. That's all it really is good, it can do there. We can't put a ball field right next to the river there. It's very unadvisable. Now, further up in that dark green to the south there, at the bottom of that, all that area, that's upland. And the natural vegetation there, if it wasn't irrigated and wasn't farmed, would likely be sagebrush, or it would be taken over by whitetop. That's the natural there. And so, no, whitetop's not natural, but sagebrush is. And so that area is, you could do that. You could have a sagebrush field if you want, and that's natural. But it seems ideal for flat fields. It's already flat. It wouldn't take much to keep it flat or rework it flat. And so that's what we're thinking about. But there is a lot of, we want to make sure we have adequate buffering. We don't want, pesticides getting into the river and interference with wildlife and things like that. But having said that, I think there is room for some flat fields here, and it's in very high demand. Next slide, please. So this is the ecosystem station, and they had a lot of people at that station as well. I saw it mobbed at times. There were 2 or 3 people there working that station. Danielle was working that station for us with some JUB people. But you can see like the past of the Meander Belt, the present, how it's more tightened and confined. Moving along from there to the next one, and all this will be up on our website, this presentation. Next slide, please. This is the recreation slide, and out of all stations, this one was mobbed the most, okay? We had, put little stickers on what you want. We have the next slide on that, but don't go there yet. But this particular slide was showing some facts about, having developed recreation, the need for flat fields. I believe there was a study done. I know Nathan knows this, but I think we're saying we're 45 flat fields short, right? Is that right? Yeah. So there's a need for flat fields. And so we felt like that was something that we wanted to look at. They're not designed yet. We were just placing them in there just to show people what was maybe possible. But we wanted to show people that you could have it like this, you could have it more natural, you can have it with different types of flat fields and different configurations of it with different options. But the idea is this slide kind of showed the economic argument and the need for developed recreation like especially soccer fields and other things. So It talked about the differences between passive and active recreation. Next slide, please. And so this was also at the recreation site, and this is where there was a lot of interaction. I believe we had 11 comments, written comments to this particular area. And you can see the fields on the south end, how they're configured under different options. There's A has quite a few flat fields. D has a ton of flat fields. The issue is how much do we allocate for the river, and how much do we allocate for natural areas near the river in these low floodplains, and how much do we allocate for developed recreation? So there are differences. D, I believe, was my original configuration that I had, the cartoon I had for a long time. I drew it with a crayon. I'm just kidding, but pretty close. But you can see there's potential for quite a few flat fields under all of these different options. And I want to let you focus on the areas in orange there. Those are called amenities in these drawings. They're not defined. And so what they did on the other side, can you show the other side, Marty, please? They said, well, what would you want in these orange areas? So there was a whole bunch of things that you could want. And so people were putting dots up for what they wanted. So next slide. So this is the outcome of all that. There were roughly 50 dots put out. That's why I think there were more than 20 people that signed up. And 77% were dots that the amenity areas in orange should be in a natural state of some sort. Open space, and with comments that it should be undeveloped open space, wildlife observation, river walking. Another one, somebody put up a sticky and said, please keep it wild. And that had 2 votes. And then a bunch of these had different things like skate park and sport courts, like a basketball court. You can see all of them had some votes. So about roughly 75, 3 out of 4 were saying more natural in these orange areas. And a lot of the comments were reflecting the need to keep it natural. However, after 3 years of sitting at my desk, I know very well that there is a huge demand for flat fields. I've had people in my office talking about how to develop soccer fields, not just on that site, but other sites, Pembroke, other places as well. So the key note there in red, recreation has not been designed yet. And we had to say that over and over again. We're not making a final decision on how to place the recreation. I think that comes in the 30% design and 60% design as we start allocating and looking at different things and figuring it out. And so right now, you can see that there is a strong component that we probably should, in the inner river area, keep it fairly natural for not only technical reasons, but also community reasons. But there also is a strong, not quite as strong in this particular sample, but in other samples, a need for flat fields especially. So that's what we've been seeing. This was a little more natural than flat fields than what I've been seeing over the last 3 years. But there have been plenty of other studies that are showing that the flat fields are important as well. Next slide, please. So the idea here is, with a preferred design, we're looking at the light green zone with the trees in it. Those are actually existing trees. Try to save as many of those natural trees, the trees that are native, as possible, and work it around so you have a fairly complicated river with things like alcoves for habitat for fish, and lots of shade and lots of natural area in that light green. And that, like I said, technically, because of the geomorphology of it, because of the hydraulics of it, really you can't do anything except for that, or really treat it hard, like with riprap or concrete or something like that. Now, down in this outer area, you can do a lot of different things. And So that will be where we make decisions on, how to allocate different kinds of recreational opportunities. And we have made no decisions on how to do that yet. That comes in the 30% design. But we felt it was really important in the alternatives analysis to kind of show what's possible and then poll people to see what their preferences are. Next slide, please. So one thing in our preferred design in this C1, this is C2 that actually has a levee. And a levee is a term of art. And I have to admit, I was a little loose with my language when I did my cartoon, and I called it a levee. I should have called it a berm. Because a levee, it means that it's certifiable and that no water gets on the other side of that, and you can actually do insurance on that. And that is not the intention of the intermediate berm. Now I call it a berm. So we want to have a berm that does block water, but we don't want it to have to be up to standards of FEMA insurance and core approval and things like that. The outer levees, of course, do, but not this inner levee or inner berm. See, I'm doing it again. Mm-hmm. So anyways, the preferred alternative has a path berm, kind of where the intermediate levee is in this figure. So the berm can do similar things to what this intermediate levee was in C2, but at a lot less money. The key here is you have to balance, and this is what the consultants will be doing. They will be balancing the dirt and what cut and fill and how to optimize that, where I can bring dirt in if I need to bring dirt in, all that kind of stuff. And they'll be giving us cost information and trying to optimize cost and protection for that outer area if we do flat fields, because you don't want them like flooded every year. You want them flooded more infrequently. So we'll be working on that. We want to work with our partners on that. We heard it loud and clear that some of our partners want that berm to be, a solid thing and have a fairly high recurrence interval. And that's something we will be working on in the 30%. And another thing that is a misunderstanding, if you look at the title of this thing, we are not asking the board to approve something here. We are asking just simply if you have input and, direction for us of anything. When we get to the 60%, we're going to be asking you to approve the design to go into permitting, and possibly at the 30%. I'm not sure on that. But we don't, in our scope, we don't say the board must approve the alternatives analysis, but we do want you to have a comfort level that we are doing our due diligence and that we are picking an alternative that allows for the river to move, but also allows for recreation of different types, including passive recreation with more ecosystem services and more active recreation, meeting a need in the community, which is ball fields. So with that, I think I want to stop the presentation and we can have questions.
Sure.
You have some, Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, sure.
Just from the notes?
Well, I've just been writing down what George has been saying. So, George, thank you so much for the presentation. I think everybody knows here how passionate I've been about this particular project, being at the heart, so to speak. It's in the middle of town. It's very visible. You can see what's happening. I wanted to just say a few things. So I really appreciate the fact that you did the public outreach. I know it's not in your usual bandwidth as a senior PE engineer, but I'm appreciative of that you did it. I'm disappointed that we couldn't attend from Reno because we had our council meeting that day and an evening part of the council meeting. And so just asking future ones if we could avoid any of our jurisdictions meetings. We'd love to have been there. The comments that you showed were not in the backup to this, and I'm really interested in, I don't know if you did a report, you at least did a summary.
Can I address that real quick? The
Yeah.
comments were not they were still being calibrated or collected at the time that we were putting out the agenda book, so we didn't get it in time. We do have the comments summarized now.
Good.
And we will be putting that out.
And could you send that to us? That would be helpful.
Yeah, that we'll send it to you, but it'll also be on our website, because I think it's important for the community to
Very
see what
important.
the results were
Very,
of their
very
comments.
important.
The dots, did you take pictures of the dots?
I don't know. We did? Okay, good.
So when we say the docs, is that the actual written comments?
The voting, like where they put up what additional amenities to build
Gotcha.
you want.
Okay.
What dots you use.
Oh, the dots, not docs. I heard docs.
Yeah, yeah, and we do have the written comments too, and
Yeah.
I'll have to kind of figure out what, on the actual written comments, what we do with those.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to
Well-
Mike about that and the consultant.
Over in Reno, like, we got 7,000 comments on our master plan. We published them all.
Yeah,
So just,
okay.
however you want to handle it, but, it's helpful for us to see what the people are saying, because we couldn't be there.
Yeah,
um,
and I want to just clarify
oh.
something. As a senior PE and senior project manager in dam safety, I did so many of these kind of meetings that make your head spin.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, okay.
I was just waiting to do a meeting like that until we had something to give a meeting like
You're
that
right.
on.
No, I
Yeah.
understand. So I had just a few things. You said that you're not asking us to pick something that won't happen until 60%. But the reason I asked for the agenda item to be modified, and what my concern is that in the agenda item, you were asking us to take possible action on a preferred alternative. And you've given us 8 or 9. You said 9, but you showed 8. And you maybe said there were a favorite 6. And then you've come up with a preferred C1. And I don't know who that's preferred by. Is that internally by you and JUB? Whoever it is, that's fine. I just wanted to know, is that,
The C1 is, that was the engineer's recommendation.
Uh-huh.
But as we talked about it, I said that we should, and they actually agreed to this. This isn't like it was like a hostile or anything. But I said we should also deal with a berm versus a levee and add that to C1.
okay, gotcha.
So it's more like C2. It looks a lot like C2.
Is there a C2 that's listed?
C2 has a levee.
Okay,
The levee costs $10 million. So we want to turn it into a berm that doesn't
Gotcha.
cost $10 million.
yeah, no, makes sense. So we have in the audience our head of our utilities division, which deals with flooding and is our main technical person. She's a very talented engineer, and she has some of the best flood people in the region working on her team now, some new additions.
I'm aware. I'm going to have coffee with her after the meeting.
Oh, that's nice. I don't know that everybody
No.
knows her, though. So
Yeah.
what a lot is driven, ultimately, where you start directs where you finish. So you're asking us to pick something, maybe not today. I just wanted to say that we had a pre-meeting with our technical staff, and they said that they were not prepared to give us, myself and Councilmember Martinez, some direction at this time to help us vote on a preferred alternative. And I just wondered if she could come up and just speak to that issue rather than me. It's not my issue.
Yeah, we have public testimony.
Yeah.
She can come up.
Well, I mean,
No-
she's
no
part of your
problem.
team. She's
Yeah.
on the TAC, so is that okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
I don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be best,
You can come up now.
so you can inform us.
Thank you.
I'll give you more than 3 minutes, too.
Oh, thank you. Well, good morning, Chair Abbott
I
and
know.
board
It's
members.
generosity today in Sparks.
Thank you, Chair Abbott and board members. Thank you for having me. Trina Magoon, Director, I'm not sure if this is on, Director of Utility Services for the City of Reno. I did, as Member Dewar said, I said I couldn't give a recommendation at this time for the alternative C1, which has been presented, and I know George has spoken a little bit about adding a berm to that. We have posed a number of questions. We've had one meeting outside of the TAC, and the TAC really is sort of a presentation mode, not a real in-depth roll up your sleeves and get into the meat of the details. We had one meeting outside of that on this project with team members. The consultant was actually not in person. Our Parks Director was not able to be in person. It was sort of thrown together quickly. So I really would, we would like to spend a little bit more time rolling up our sleeves and getting to know what the details of this project. We have asked a number of questions that have not been responded to, and that's where some of my hesitation lies. And with that, as we've heard George present at the City of Reno, and we've long talked about, I was on the team 25 years ago that helped put together the Parks Master Plan for this project. And the jewel of the river is really this recreation element that we've all talked about. Other than, obviously, the main important piece of this project is flood control. But we've long talked about the jewel of the river. And questions have arose with this design and levee, no levee, and the elevation of these flat fields and all of the amenities at the frequency at which they would be inundated in a flood. And on a Truckee River flood, they would be inundated based on where this berm was, and what we don't know is what that would cost. And one of our main concerns is if this is frequently inundated or even maybe a little less frequently inundated, the cost to repair those and the, what's the word I want to use? The
Maintain.
assurance that the tournaments would come back or would have confidence that they could have these tournaments on these flat fields and therefore make it a financially viable solution has not been demonstrated. Now, if it floods at a 30-year event, let's say that, or a 36-year event, well, historically, we've had a 100-year event about every 10 years, not most recently, but we have. So that's a pretty frequent inundation frequency, and we're just not sure that it could be a viable solution. So with the questioning of, with a berm, without a berm, the elevation, I think some of those things really are, if we're selecting an alternative, which is what this item says, it wasn't just to obtain board input, it's looking to select a C1 with maybe a berm. This board just approved a CIP, and it had about $60 million in it for this project. However, the berm is going to add to that cost. And or maybe making the flat fields a little bit higher with a berm, or I think there's a lot of things that are still left to be determined to make a comfort recommendation on what alternative. And as George has said, he's recommending, or the consultant recommended C1, and then with a bit of C2, and we don't even really have what that is, or the cost of what that is, or the cost of what that might mean for these flat fields. So the next item, he did have the public meeting, which was great. I did attend. There was 30, 35 people there. I would have expected that feedback be brought to the TAC before being brought to this board, and that also didn't happen. I'm assuming in the interest of time. George is really trying to push to get this done, and believe me, I'm all for that. I've been working on this project one way, shape, or another for most of my career. Super excited to see that going forward. What I can't say, this might be the perfect alternative. I just don't feel like I'm confident in being able to say it is. I think it's probably close, but having this body select an alternative without understanding some of the implications is where my concern lies. So I'm actively trying to work with TRFMA and their team. As George mentioned, we plan to go to coffee after this. We really want to help make this project the jewel of our community, and just want to make sure we're a part of it and we're doing the right thing and we provide our input to that. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Trina. That summed it up pretty well. And I want to make sure, and I know Member Martinez too, we just want to move forward with confidence, and we're at a magic moment. 30% design is an important step, just like 60, just like 90. And so I think, and maybe George, you're just asking us for direction at this time, and you don't want us to actually, you said maybe not select an alternative today, so maybe you could clarify.
Okay. Well, first of all, we need to, as a board, you as a board will have to decide who is going to take over this property. This is in the ICA, there is no, it goes to Reno or the county or to Sparks, or we keep it or whatever. So we have to make that decision eventually. I would think because it's all in Reno, and because of the work on Pembroke, I would think that Reno would have an interest in that, and I think that kind of makes sense, but that's not decided. So we need to do something about that eventually in the near term, in the next few months, I would say even. Because the other thing I want to say is what we have decided is river alignment. And yes, they may not know all the implications. However, we had one of the best geomorphologist groups in the world that we got onto the contract on purpose to do this work and to show us what was necessary for river alignment. And we also looked at the hydraulics with a state-of-the-art 2D model to see what the treatments would be. So we as a team kind of do know that. Now, maybe we haven't communicated that all to all our stakeholders yet. However, as we move into the 30% design, I do not think we're going to go back to, let's stick the river up by Sparks and have all these property disputes. That's just not going to happen. And I don't think we're going to say, let's confine the river and have it tight when we'd have to use riprap. Those are not viable options to me. So we will have some sort of meandering river like C1. We have said that we should optimize those meanders to make sure that we don't have too much avulsion, channel avulsion. That's where the channel changes its course. So we're looking at, we have to refine this, and we want our stakeholders involved in refining this. Like, do we want the berm? How high the berm?
Sure.
How high the terrace? We need a lot more information to do that at the design level than at a conceptual level. And this alternatives analysis was just to check, basically get at the river alignment. And every question that Reno has asked, we have said, we actually have a to-do list. We are already working on the bridge issue. Our subconsultant is already looking at the cost of flooding. So in the 30%, all this is coming. But we want to work in a orderly fashion, and we cannot be doing this on 9 different alternatives, some of which we know are non-starters, like keeping the river where it is up against the north end and having land disputes.
So I personally agree with everything you just said. And there's no criticism intended. We do have to narrow the alternatives. What I think, if I could rephrase what Trina Magoon is saying, is that she wants the opportunity to complete her analysis before we make a selection. And I think if Sparks made the same request, which they could because they have issues here too about the alignment of the river, or if the county did, I would respect that. And that's all we're asking is let's give our staff a little bit more time. They're not asking for a year. They're just asking for some more time so that we can make, so we can be part of this decision in picking the alignment. And so we want to give you direction. We're just not quite ready, and that's all there is to it. It's no criticism, George. You're headed down the right path. We have to narrow the alternatives. We're just not ready there yet based on what our staffs have, the analysis that they've completed this time. So, I don't mind assuming that we're generally going in the direction that you've laid out. I'm just not prepared to vote on it and say, this is a selected thing, because once you do that, there's really no going back. And if there is a C2, as you said, with berm versus levee, I think that should just be laid out. You've gone into 9 detailed analysis. So if it's C2, I'd like to pick C2 as modified or whatever it is. But let's just get it in front of us and let's get the public comment in front of us, and then we can be prepared to move forward together as partners. That's all.
Okay. Having heard that,
Yeah.
the way this thing was scoped that we approved as a group, we need to go into the 30% design to answer some of these questions. We do not have budget or schedule to do that right now. So I would hope that you have a little trust in us to allow us to follow our process and answer your questions in a timely manner. We're already working on the questions.
Okay. So keep working and get the questions answered. I mean, it's just like respect for another professional, I guess, is that they need time to complete their review, and they're asking for that. It's nothing more than that. And it's, again, don't view it as criticism or lack of trust. I know that having been involved with this project, I've always taken super serious if Spark staff had a question or county staff had a question, I wanted to respond to that and make sure they're comfortable. That's all.
Go for it.
Thank you. On Ms. Magoo's concern on the flooding, and I guess I was thinking while we were talking through these alternatives, are they providing different levels of protection? She was saying 36-year flood concern, or is there an alternative that does 100-year flood, or do we not quite know?
Yes, they do different things. We have initial readings on the levee heights to figure out what different options do for flooding, and it also actually how the water cycles down to Vista Narrows, because I'm concerned about the limitation we have with the tribe on our agreement. So we looked at all of that, and that was a big consideration, actually. Make sure that any alternative that we move forward with is under 2,400 CFS.
And remind me what that means, I'm sorry. The 20.
Well, that we're not increasing the
Right,
flow from
right.
our total project more than 2,400
As
CFS.
with our agreement.
With the
That's right.
mitigation agreement, yes.
But just, you don't know what the protection is with alternative C1 or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, what is that?
One, with no berm or no levee, it's roughly 6 years.
Okay.
With, on C2, with go ahead. I want to have our consultant
Can I
chime
just
in.
come down?
You
Maybe
need to, get
just
on
come
it.
down so we can get you on
You
the.
can stay. Trina,
You
you can stay. He's going to come.
just so we can get you on the record.
Yeah, of course.
State your
Thank you.
name.
Shane Dyer,
Yep.
for the record. Yeah, so in
Yeah.
one of the comments in one of our drafts, we had done a separate analysis and it showed a lower return interval. We were directed to use the GRR return intervals. It's the way that the Army Corps of Engineers did it. With that return interval, it's actually a 16-year without the berm, and then it's like a 36-year with the berm. And in all scenarios, the fields get inundated. It just matters how high we put that berm. And we can do it to whatever height the board wants, or the city wants, or whoever's going to own the park. We can do it to whatever height they want. The thing that hasn't been done with all the concepts, the 8 that are presented here, with all those 8 concepts, we haven't done like a cut and fill balance, because each one is different. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so we need to, we can choose a few, or we could do whatever you guys want, but then we need to do that cut and fill, put all the soil on the field with the balance, and then see how much higher we want to go with the berm and choose, okay, do we want 50-year protection? Do we want whatever year you want? And then the fields will always get inundated because it's a flood area.
They're
But
supposed to.
yeah, right. But what interval do you want? And then we can design to that. And that's fine. All the concepts, all the current concepts really just show viable containment of the flood.
Okay. And at different levels, if we chose the C1 or B1, sounds like it could be a mix of the two, we could choose a different level of flood protection with those with a berm, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you could pretty much choose.
That is the recommended alternative, is to put the berm in. So, yeah.
Right.
So you can choose what you want, pretty much. I mean, we'd have to, if you say you want 75, that probably wouldn't work. I mean, but I think there's an issue that Wood Rogers is looking at in terms of how much does it cost. And I think the way they're going to present this is, okay, if it's 1 foot of depth of flood, how much is that going to cost to fix? If it's 3 foot, how much is that? And if it's over 3 foot, how much is that going to cost? And how often is this going to happen? So we're putting this together now. We're going to try and give some kind of idea of what is the potential cost if there's this many floods over time. But it's going to be tough it's really, those are horseshoes and hand grenades, right? So it's going to be tough. It's like, I think whoever's going to own the park probably wants it to flood the least. But the least, as we flood it less, we push more water down. So there's like that balance. So it's really just a decision that you guys have to make, and then we'll design it that way.
Because the fields were, the great thing that I thought they were there in concept was to flood. But I understand that there's maintenance and management issues. Part of that.
Right. So we can flood, we can choose kind of how much, and the more it changes the shape of the hydrograph. So as long as we let them flood up at the 100, we can make it work. But if we allow it to like flood earlier, then we can retain more water faster, like earlier in the flood. If we don't allow it to flood, it pushes more down
Yeah, and that
faster.
doesn't help our partners.
So it changes the way that the flood comes through. And so for each scenario we want to look at, we would just run the analysis and we could give it back to George, and George would be like, or whoever, the city, and they can say, well, that we don't like it that way, and we can change it up based on what each entity wants, or, you know.
And does that change with, and I'm sorry, I'm asking the consultant, and then, of course, the chairman would, but does that change with the different alternatives that are on these 8 different alternatives, as far as inundation of the fields? Because really the issue is still the meandering of the river on those alternatives, right?
Yeah, that doesn't really change, regardless
so-
of where the river shape is. The actual inundation doesn't change
Right.
very much between there's maybe some slight changes based on some of the terrace grading, but it's really not changing.
Yeah, the inundation, the most important thing about that is habitat at lower flows and inundation at very low floods. So if you have a certain type of inundation, a certain type of low terrace, you get that low terrace flooded and it starts recharging the groundwater, and then you get better riparian vegetation expression. So that's all a consideration that we have to look at as well. But it's not really, at the higher flows, it all washes out because it's just going through at that point.
So a 1-month delay with making an alternatives.
Well, I don't have budget in the alternatives
So I
analysis.
guess I need to hear from you what that 1 month delay of, I'm trying to see if there's like a balance we can strike here, like of giving Reno some time to evaluate this. What is the consequence to this board? What is the like you're saying I can't afford it. What does that mean? Does that mean we're a month? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I would like to go into 30% analysis so I can answer some of the questions that Reno has brought up about the bridge, about cut and fill, and how high we want to make that berm, and how high we want to make that outer field with the borrow and fill that we have. I mean, I need to take it into that to do that. Now, we talk like it's a return to nowhere of anything. What we're doing here is we're trying to refine a initial preferred alternative, right? So it's a combination of C1 and C2. Mostly, it looks a lot like C2, except it's a berm. And then
Well, B1 too, right?
Yeah. They need to refine how that thing is moving through there. It was a combination of that. And so what they're going to be doing in the 30% is trying to optimize all these things for cost, for like water flow down at Vista, for heights on the levees. I mean, there's a lot of considerations here. And that's why we don't want to do it for 9 alternatives or 8 alternatives. We wouldn't be doing it for 9 because 9.
But I don't think that if we delayed and just, I'm not telling you to do 8 alternatives necessarily, and I'm not saying I want to delay. I'm trying to decide what I want to do. That's why I'm asking these questions. But if we delayed a month, we're not asking you to look at 9 or 8 alternatives. We just are
they
saying,
haven't
we'll bring this
chosen
back.
alternatives, so we have to look more at all the alternatives. Well, what are we doing then? Why can't we just go to 30?
Trina Magoon, again, for the record. We've not asked you to look at 9 alternatives, even remotely. We have asked some pointed questions about C1 and B1 relating to C2, B2, which is this berm or levee, depending on what we're calling it. And our concerns stem around where it sits right now at a 36-year return interval. seemingly would flood too frequently. So how high would that berm be? What are the cost implications? There are a couple of other pieces. If you put a berm in, the layout of the flat fields, we don't know how many flat fields would fit and how big that berm. All of these things are intertied, and I think there's a little bit more work to be done on understanding what a selected alternative to move into would look like and what those associated costs. Now, George had mentioned that C2 added $10 million. I thought I recalled it being 15 or 20 for a levy. So, and then again, you just approved a CIP that doesn't include costs for a berm whatsoever. So maybe just, and I do agree that C1 and B1 are quite honestly
not true.
probably the preferred alternatives to look forward to, but with a berm and a little bit more refinement on what does that mean for flat fields and what does that mean for flooding frequency and maintenance of those flat fields. Now, the other thing, George is saying that they don't have enough budget to do the analysis to understand what that inundation frequency would mean to those flat fields. It's really hard to provide a recommendation on a whole concept if we don't know if it will even work.
Mr. Walls?
If I may, maybe I could help narrow the issue somewhat here. Sitting from the side, it seems like we're maybe perhaps talking past each other just a little bit. I think one of the items that we need direction on as far as moving forward is the river alignment issue. And it seems to me that that is not really in dispute today.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think the part of the point that George is trying to make is some of these questions we don't have the answer to because we need to go to the 30% design in order to answer those. And I think that we can acknowledge that those are still open issues. And of course, everyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but so in some ways, I think that we're actually addressing these issues pretty adequately.
We agree, but we need more work.
And we admit we need more work.
We are doing more
We
work.
are going to do the more work if this is approved today, because we
Yes.
generally agree about like the, right? The
Right.
bigger,
The intermediate berm, the location of that is not going to be decided today. The height of it's not going to be decided today. The cost is unknown. They're just, I mean, I think that obviously from our conversation now becomes the big target issue as we move towards that 30% design. So I'm suggesting that I think that we can have a motion here that gets us the direction that we need to move forward and allows us to answer these questions without really too much conflict. Also, just a legal issue. The ICA anticipates that all property and all projects will be owned, operated, and maintained by the flood authority unless an agreement is made with one of the members to do something else. And we don't, and George mentioned this, but I just we know who owns it, and that's us. This board can operate that. Now, there become some legal issues on the money that we can use to maintain these properties. And maybe that's a discussion for another day as well. But there's just, I don't want everyone assuming that this is moving forward in a certain way because the board has never been asked to address that yet.
that Reno will own it. 'Cause we
Right, or the county, and Mayor Lawson stated, or Sparks, or it could remain with the flood authority. I'm not sure that's the ideal answer, but that's a possibility. And I think at one point in time, it was anticipated that the recreational facilities would remain with the flood authority. But I just want to throw that out there, make sure.
And there is another option where the inner areas stay with the flood authority and the areas outside the berm go to the city or the county.
And in fact, there's another alternative, and that is that the property remains with the flood authority and the facilities themselves, belong to and are maintained by Reno County or Sparks.
So there's lots of options.
Lots of options.
For me, the point in all of this is a flood project. It's not a flat
Yes.
field project.
Mhm.
I really don't care about the flat fields. If they have to work later on, great. But the bottom line is, there's a lot of people that work down there. There's a lot of homes in that area. First and foremost, the people gave us this money to mitigate flooding, not to build flat fields. So for me, I really don't care if the flat fields are there or not, but it should not affect the design to mitigate the flooding. That's the bottom line in my mind.
Yeah.
And so to me, we might even be ahead of ourselves here to pick an alternative for flat fields, because flat fields don't really matter in the big scheme of things when you're flooding 30,000 employees in the Sparks industrial area and hundreds of homes in that, in the Reno and Washoe County side. So, yeah, it makes no difference and the people paid for it, not just people who use flat fields. People of this county paid for it. So that's where I'm at, and I prefer that we do the design to mitigate the flooding. The Vista Narrows is important to, we know that's where the bottom of the bathtub is, and we know that's where it's going to flood first. Can we slow that flooding down by using all of the property there, putting the berm around and making that more of a retention area? There's things to me that make sense. That flat field's really is wonderful to have, but it's not the purpose of this board.
Yeah, and I'm not against the flat fields, and I think the flat fields can be used in a way, if they're floodable, to actually mitigate flooding. And they do that all over the place. Davis, California has something like that, actually. So that's fine, but what I guess I'm getting at is I don't have enough information to answer Reno's questions yet. I want to get them the information. Our configuration is fungible. It's not exactly configured yet, but what we will say is we need to give the river some room, and we need to get it off that north end. Those are the two things that we want to move forward with and narrow down these alternatives a bit. Because we have no river moving alternative. We have, like a crazy alternative that I did with my crayon. Those things need to go. And so B1, C1, combination of those, berm height is negotiable. Actually, high berm height can actually help with flooding, the taking off the peak. So we know how to do that, but we just need to get the information. So all I'm asking from Reno is some patience. We will bring you in on the process. I want to talk to you about more meetings, all of that, but I just want some patience so that we can get you the information and you can make those calls. And nothing is set in stone here. However, we are not building it on the north end and having all those property disputes. That is set in stone. But I'm saying, the exact configuration of that river is not set yet. That's why we said a combination of C1 and B1. So I think that what I'm asking for is, please let us get this information to you. Let us have more meetings like that special meeting we had with our sleeves rolled up and walk through this and give you the comfort level that you want. And you can also input to us on what you want with the berm, because the berm can do as much as the levee. It's just not a certified levee. So it can do the same exact thing.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Stewart.
Yeah. This may surprise some of you, but Trina's interest is not specifically about flat fields, Mr. Lawson. Her interest is what we're here to discuss today, which is the alignment of the river. And the fact that we didn't bring this item a month ago or 2 months ago, we didn't bring it until JUB had completed their analysis, till George got a comfort level. And that's all we're asking here, is not to get ahead of our skis and plan an entire flat field. She told me herself that flat fields, if it floods too often in there, flat fields may not be appropriate. So I want to give her the same courtesy that we've given to George, that we've given to our JUB, our consultants. We don't want to bring this before it's time, that's all, and picking this alignment. When you say, George, it's a combination of B1, C1, C2, and something else, those aren't some of our options. I'd love to narrow down to what direction we are giving you, and I think Trina can help on that. And that's the focus now. It's not to design flat fields. It's not to get out ahead of our skis into 30 and 60% design. It's to answer this question. And you couldn't bring this to us a year ago, 6 months ago, even 2 months ago, till they've finished the review. And all we're asking is to be allowed to finish our review. We want to back you on this. And I don't think anybody is going to suggest somehow that we put a river within inches of where it is on the north side to flood Sparks. It's just, I agree with you, it's not happening. But you have listed 8 or 9 other alternatives, or 8 anyway, and just give her the time to do her work. It's just a professional courtesy. She's not trying to get out ahead and assume that there's a recreation, anything, so.
I guess we could say the same things. Let's give George the time to do his work.
I
Huh?
am not as aware as everyone in here, but it sounds like we're trying to get answers that aren't available. And I think the respect of no matter what jurisdiction is important, but the reality is that we have already, is my understanding, approved at a high level the scope, not all of this other
Right.
detail.
Right.
So I would just like to respectfully pull this all the way back. We are shopping for a Christmas tree, and we're talking about the ornaments, and we haven't even got the tree. I hate to use, trying to be a happy analogy here of joy and presents under the tree and everybody having that opportunity to open them up, and whether it's fields that are under the tree or whatever it might be. But I think that the parameter to which I understand this board, the agenda item that's before us, is literally based on the approval of the scope, will be able to then define the rest of everything. And the city of Reno has an absolute essential place in the discussion and giving the feedback, along with the public as well, as the process moves forward. So I think instead of looking at maybe some of these things that we don't have the answers to, that we pull the jurisdictional responsibility we as board members have for a flood, and look at the motion that all we're doing is allowing the process to continue. We're not even choosing, if you will, a specific, I don't think that they may have narrowed it down. They may know the scope of the Christmas tree they'd like. They're not even sure. So I am comfortable with moving forward with what was recommended, and us moving forward. The scope was already approved. Let the process, go through, and that this board will then have the responsibility to continue through, and the city of Reno has a seat at the table in terms of giving feedback. That's how I see it. So I may be wrong, but that's how I see it.
If I may, could I suggest maybe a possible motion for
Yes.
further discussion?
We have a comment from Mr. Martinez.
Martinez, is all you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the robust discussion. I think it's tough for me to move forward when we have staff who might be, in charge of the maintenance of this facility in the future. And I know there's still obviously questions that we need to answer about who is going to be responsible for that. But when we have 1 out of the 4 possible folks not comfortable with moving forward, I would ask that hopefully we can give staff at the city another month to review these plans. It looks like it'll put us, just 30 days back. There's already meetings scheduled, it sounds like, with Director Robeson and some of the city of Reno staff. So hopefully that can help move the conversation forward and make sure that those questions that were asked are answered, and that the responses, are sufficient enough for us to make a decision, whether one way or another. And so I just wanted to contribute that. And I think that the 30% design will give us a better understanding of some of those questions. But as Member Dewar said, if we're already headed in a general direction from the beginning, it might be harder to figure out, to move that trajectory in the future if we already start headed down that path. And so if the board is amenable, I would ask that we hold off this item for another 30 days and schedule it on our next meeting, and make sure that everybody is comfortable with the information that's being presented for us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walls.
And I'll ask the technical people to correct us a little bit as I go along, but it seems to me that what we could do today is that we could have a motion to move forward with further study and design, assuming the river alignment is set forth in alternative C1 or B1. And so that we at least have our river alignment narrowed to that. The other things are going to be studied anyway, and that's what will allow us to move forward, I think, to a more specific design and to have these conversations that need to be had. And I don't think anyone disagrees. We need to have those conversations. So that would be, I don't know if I got my alternatives right, if that was correct. Is that specific enough?
Yeah.
No, it's
We'll
too.
be able to tell the questions that Trina has, as long as, yeah, we'll be able to do that analysis. You know, if you said move forward with with this combination B1, C1. Right now, everything's conceptual. We really have to move into design to
Right.
answer these
we can give her an
questions
idea,
that-
though. I mean,
Right, because that won't tell you where the berm is, the way you've done this, right? You'll still have to decide where the berm is, what the height of it is, the return, all of those questions, so,
we can
I'm sorry.
do that.
Mr. Wells, Trina Magoon, for the record, I appreciate that sentiment. I do agree, if we're just talking about the low flow alignment of the river, that it does need the room to move, and we're happy with that. The parts that we don't have enough information are the heights and frequency of flooding and whether there's flat fields or not, and if there's room for them, and what height the berm is, and how much that costs, and all of those things come into play. So I'm perfectly happy with the understanding we do not want a hard-armored, pinched-in river either. We're not suggesting we need to move north into Sparks, any of those things. I'm happy with that, but the way the item was written was sort of setting C1 and even C1 without potentially a berm, and that's where we were having a little bit of struggle, because I think there's a lot of outstanding questions on that piece of it. We're happy with meandering river and that portion of C1, B1.
Great, so it sounds like Santa Claus entered the room.
Yay.
That's what I'm
Joy
hearing.
is
Sound like- sound like-
You just called me fat and jolly.
No,
I think Ms. Stewart's got some.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, and as long as there's several alternatives, because George did say in here, a combination of alternatives to carry forward, but that was not presented as the motion, as he described it in his presentation, so I appreciate that, Mr.
I
Walls.
didn't have a motion in my presentation.
Well, you said we're recommending C1. That was the consensus. I wrote it down.
Well,
It was
I'll move
preferred.
if the
so.
chair is ready for a motion to accept the recommended motion by Mr. Wolves.
Oh,
We
I'll
have a
second.
motion and a second. Mr. Lawson, do you have anything to add?
Just a reminder that this property is owned by the flood board. It's not owned by anybody else. So
Absolutely.
Understood.
away we go.
Oh, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Martinez, do you have anything else to add or any comments, questions before we vote?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, sir. We have a motion and a second.
But Mr. Walls needs to
Public
add
comment.
something.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Do you have any public comment on this one?
I do not see any further public
Perfect.
comment.
Now we're good to go. Well, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
You mean all in
Or-
favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, all in favor, say aye. Yeah, aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Good work, Mrs. Santa Claus over there.
And if I may, thank you to the board. Please understand, going forward, we're going to have tougher decisions. And I think it's incredibly important to hear each other out. And that's all that I care about, and it's what I did when I worked here. It's what I do as elected. And if any of you have discomfort, it's important to raise that issue. Like, we need to move forward together, whether we have unanimous voting or not. This is all of our project. It is on flood project land, as Mr. Lawson said. Nobody's disputed that. I mean, on purpose. I bought the land for the flood project, so very much so. So thank you.
Thank you, and I think this board did put Reno on
Exactly.
the executive committee to review agendas prior to, and so hopefully those conversations can also.
I don't know
happen.
about the executive board or,
Councilman Martinez is the vice chair, so
Right.
he receives the agenda prior to any of.
gotcha.
Same with me. We both read it and approve it.
Yeah, I haven't been in that role, so I'm not familiar with that process.
Item 5, report on the Reno Parks Ranger patrols and activities on the Turpin properties between Rock Boulevard and South McCarran Boulevard conducted pursuant to the Reno Parks Rangers interlocal funding agreement. Possible action to give direction to staff. Mr. Uliet.
All right, Nathan Elliott, Parks and Recreation Director for the record. I'm going to try to go 2 for 2 on putting this password in.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Nailed it. Awesome. I am ready. All All right, well, thanks for having us back again. A little behind schedule. We had some shifts in personnel over the last quarter in quarter two. I want to introduce to my left Scott Hoffman, who is our park ranger supervisor, who started in that role prior to the new year. But we're here to provide updates on what has been a continued very positive relationship along the river and with the Turfma property and with your staff and council and I don't know if the title's coordinator, but Danielle Henderson and working with her and learning more about what she can do to help the entire river. We're looking at things in Oxbow. So we'll try to keep this brief. Obviously, that was a long item, but we'll try to get this through quickly. Just a review of parties involved, ourselves, City of Reno, Park and River Rangers, and then obviously the Truckee River Flood Management Authority. We want to continue to maintain safety and cleanliness along the entire Truckee River corridor. And some new things for this update, we have some new rangers. There's a new ordinance with the City of Reno, and that gives us a greater efficacy to pull off the role of being the River Rangers and to meet that objective. So we added 2 River Rangers to the fold over the last quarter. Not in any small part, based on the funding from Turfma, it allowed us to hire that 6th position, so we're very grateful for that. We also have a new funding partner. Thank you to the county for the $200,000 allocation from ARPA to fund a position as well. We'll be hiring that over the next month. We wanted to try to pair that with an additional funded position, so we're going to hire 2 rangers over the next month to 2 months. That will work within the ARPA boundaries and guidelines to complete that funding, and then also bump our numbers up to 8. And we'll go over a little bit the new ordinance that we have for Reno, which is allowing our ability to enforce more consistently along our public spaces, including the river path and any public space along the river. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
Scott Hoffman, Park Ranger Supervisor for the City of Reno, for the record. So basically, the way that this system works for us, we try to patrol daily. We're set for an average of 5 or above visits per week. With holidays, we had a little bit of dip there. We still remained above 5, closer to 6 at that point. Now that we've added more rangers, we've actually been able to increase that number. We're getting a lot closer to 7 days a week. So just breaks down kind of the last 3 months, the 3 months of quarter 2. So through October, and I'll just add, most of this has been pretty minimal. We haven't had any major issues, and due to our constant presence, we haven't had anything build up to a significant level. So October, just a warning given for trespassing. We do have multiple interactions with Green Vibe. They do a great job with cleanups, and we have a great relationship with them as well. So I put the average visits, we were at 6.55 for October. November, another warning for trespassing. We have had a few camps that have established underneath the Rock Street Bridge. With that, it's generally the day that we find it, we notice, we educate. The day after that, they're gone. So we have had up to this point, we have had no resistance as far as getting someone to comply and leave the property. December, same thing. We had one more camp at Rock Street Bridge that occurred on one day, was gone the next. So we've been able to maintain above 5 days a week, and we gain compliance generally within 10 minutes. So if they have a large amount of items, it may take 24 hours at the most. You can switch that. So this is some statistics for our patrols. This is outside of the Turfma property. This is everything that we handle from essentially Verdi downstream. So with this, we're up to 5 park rangers. We've been ramping our numbers up every month. 1,392 patrols. We're issuing 791 warnings in a 3-month span, 59 citations, 1 exclusion. And for anyone that's not familiar, park exclusion essentially is if we have a repeat offender, someone that continues to establish that they cannot follow the rules in the park, we issue an exclusion. Therefore, after that, if they show up in that park again, we can contact RPD. They'll come out and issue a trespass, and they're immediately removed from the premises. So like I said, those are for our repeat offenders. We don't do a ton of those, but they have been effective for us. And then as well as that, we've removed 247 cubic yards of debris. I'll pass this back to Nathan. You can kind of get more into the details on this.
Right. Again, Nathan Elliott, Parks and Recreation Director for the record. In the quarterly memo or update that we sent out, we kind of went into a little more detail about the ordinance that's in place now for public spaces to help curb camping opportunities and blocking of paths, things like that. So if you're up on that, I won't go too far into detail, but just how that helps us is it does remove the confinement of the ranger's ability to from the parks to now our entire public spaces. We don't need to notice in spaces along the river where if they were not in a park before, we have to provide a notice. And that sometimes could lead to a 1, 2, 3 day kind of entrenchment that then gets the debris and, the paper starts to spill out, they're starting fires, things like that. So it really allows us to just nip that in the bud and just reduce the opportunity for footholds to develop. So now we're just requiring immediate compliance. We'll stand here while you pack your stuff up and you're going to be cited immediately, those types of things, unless as a part of offering service, we get them connected with services and get them into shelter or to find them the transitional housing. So again, that gives us that opportunity along the entire river path and public space. So just some updates for the next review, which will hopefully be in 2 months rather than another 3 or 4. We have a new data entry and reporting system, which will show a dashboard and it allows us to be more specific about spaces, which will help with our kind of recidivism data and things like that. It's just a really great presentation tool. We did receive approval from the Tumwa board just a few days ago in these very hollowed halls here for another grant for $50,000 to support the program and the hiring of the additional ranger that I mentioned earlier. So we're excited about that. We're going to start working with some of the other businesses and property owners along the river to see if they're interested in contributing. We had a productive meeting with Waste Management yesterday to talk as a sort of representative of what we could do for the Waste Management property. We mentioned the TURFMA agreement is, we patrol the property, we're able to address it immediately so it doesn't become something where it's a code issue or something like that. So we're excited about continuing to make this a sustainable and a program that will benefit the entire river, but also benefit the folks who work and live right on it. So the next, we're working on recidivism data, which I know was something that was brought up in the last update that we provided. We're working with PD to try to isolate where the ranger patrolled areas are. So there's some challenges there. And also we don't have a ton of backup data to go compare to, but we're hoping to have at least a report structure by the next quarterly update. So with that, that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you again for the support. It has helped this group who has the will for sure to make a difference in this space and to make that river a place that is the jewel of our city and our region, up and down, not just in one area or one space, but up and down the river. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from anyone? Mr. Lawson.
So when you visit the flood property, how long do you spend there?
So it generally takes us about an hour to an hour and a half to do a full patrol. Essentially what we'll do is we'll come in through the Ferrari Farms entrance. We drive down to the Rock Street Bridge. We start our patrol from that point, and then we're walking the riverbank all the way up to McCarran. We're checking gates. We're checking for any new trash, encampments, anything like that. And then on our way back, we're kind of gridding out. So essentially we walk the riverbank east, we'll move our way further away from the river and then work our way back to the trucks. So anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what we encounter. But it's generally pretty quiet other than some random trespassing and the occasional camp.
What do we pay, or what are we giving you guys? Is it 200,000?
So up to 200,000. It's 20% of the program funding, which this year came out to 117,000.
And the significant amount of decrease in trash that we've seen. So I showed you for quarter two there, we had 200 and something yards of debris that was removed. If we take this back to about a year ago when there were 2 to 3 of us, we were in the thousands. And I'm sure I don't have to explain to any of you how expensive that can be, removing all of that. So with the increased numbers that we've seen, we're able to get those camps within a day. So that significantly cuts down on man hours and debris removal.
Phil.
And it's winter time.
And winter, we get a little break in the winter, that's for sure.
So I mean, I think an update, after the weather warms up and we see the folks leave the CARES campus because we definitely see seasonal switches at
Absolutely.
the county. And
Yes.
so that will be good to get that report and hear what's happening on the ground once the weather's up. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, yeah. Sandra.
You had reported, and it's in your report as well, that you found minor debris and then contacted Green Vibe. So do you pay Green Vibe, or do they just come and volunteer and take the debris out, or how does that work?
In our initial discussions, Green Vibe is contracted with TURFMA, and that was part of the plan. If there's anything significant, if it's, a shopping cart or something else, we'll throw it in the back of our truck. If it ends up being where a lot of debris washed downstream and got into the vegetation and things like that, Green Vibe is under contract with TURFMA, so we were instructed to communicate back and forth.
I was just trying to differentiate based on the debris point, and obviously the seasonality that's coming,
Right.
so we may see more. I was trying to differentiate between what those two actions were in terms of
I think the best.
a total amount, so that was
Right.
the reason I was
Gotcha.
asking.
I think the best way that we've put it, and in talking with the Truckee River Fund and Tumwa, is we're the opportunity for prevention, right? I hope our cubic yards continue to go down because it never gets in the river, right? So that's the opportunity we are, and we still need these wonderful groups like Green Vibe in different spaces to react to. As we shrink the envelope, you're seeing more folks go onto private property because we're able to enforce on the public spaces. So we get to be prevention, keep it out of the river. Hopefully it never gets in, but there are still sadly the needs as we push them one way or the other, and hopefully we all continue to work together with Sparks and with PD and with the county to shrink the envelope and to protect the river.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments? No. Mr. Martinez?
I'm good for now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Yeah, just a report.
Mr.
And-
Chair, if I may, just,
Yes.
because we read that statement about public comment a little bit late in the meeting, I was wondering if we could reopen item number 2, which was the consent agenda, and call for public comment again, just in case there was someone on the phone, and vote on that again, just to make sure that we've covered
Absolutely.
that. Sorry about the inconvenience.
No problem. We'll go back to consent item number 2. Is there any public comment or anything on that one?
I have just a question,
Okay.
since don't we have to vote to reopen it though,
We're-
first?
Do we need to vote to reopen it, Mr. Bowles?
Well,
Since we already took action, I'm just saying,
yes, we probably should.
just reconsider.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to
Yeah, I'll
reconsider?
motion to reconsider.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reconsider the consent item. All in favor, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously, so we'll go back to
Thank you.
consent items.
Yeah, and I just have a question. On A, where we were amending the agreement with JUB, and I assume that's for the project we were just talking about, or maybe they
No.
provide services for something else?
That's Wadsworth.
That's for Wadsworth
Okay,
Bridge.
that's what I wanted to find out. Okay, it wasn't very clear to me which project. It just said JB, extend the term. I know in the backup, there was more, but just on the agenda.
Well, it is the Wadsworth Bridge project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Perfect. Do we have
Motion to
any-
approve?
Yeah, I didn't hear any public comment.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
Let's just open that up
Yeah.
again. Do we have any public comment for the consent item?
I don't see any.
Perfect. I don't see one jumping here either. Looking for a motion for the consent items to approve all 5 of them.
Motion to approve?
A motion by Ms. Stewart, second by Ms. Hill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I also passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Cool. Then we'll go over to item 6. Ask for public comment one more time. Last public comment of the day. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Perfect. Then we'll close that. Go to item 7. Board member comments, requests, and future agenda items. Anyone have anything?
I have something.
Yeah, Ms. Andrea.
I just really want to recognize Danielle Henderson, who's not here, but I hope that it's echoed, George, that you can really thank her. She participated along with many other folks on March 7th. Specifically, it was a meeting that I helped to coordinate along with Brian Beffert with Washoe County to talk about. You could call it End of the World Camp, you could call it Court of Antiquity, but the technical name in terms of the tribal I cannot pronounce. but the interpretation is Paw of the Coyote or Coyote Wildings. I got that wrong. So the point is that Danielle was there and did a great job in terms of representing this organization, and I wanted to be able to recognize her, and she's not here, but I hope that someone can certainly share what a great job she did, because the river obviously came up in the discussion, and there were a lot of federal, state, local, all tribal chairmen were there, and many others, archaeologists. It was a great meeting, and we're looking at having a follow-up meeting in April. So I wanted to make sure she was recognized. She did a great job.
No discussion here, but I believe she is on Zoom, so
She is online.
You heard it.
Great.
Anyone else? I'll just say, I think I was on the website earlier and it's looking really good. I don't know. There's lots of good information all over. Nice, you can spend some good time on it. One suggestion was, are we going to be able to put our video up on there that we filmed, the YouTube link and all that?
You mean the post of the documentaries?
Like my famous Go Bag video.
Oh,
And-
yes, yes, those are the documentaries, yes. They are already on YouTube, and I can put up a post about them on the website, too.
Awesome. And I think if we could maybe upload them on our Facebook page, that would be great. So it's not just a clickable link because people don't click too well. And I know the city's committed to help sharing it on our side. But if we
I can do that. I can look into doing that.
Yes, the county, and the county is willing to do that too. We're trying to do what we can to help in terms of, sharing information. I would also ask, to piggyback, Mr. Chair, is that you send those, I know that we all get inundated, but it's really great because we have a responsibility to be advocates for the board positions we're here representing. And so I certainly would welcome that opportunity to help push that kind of information, or meetings or what have you. So I realize we all have a lot in our inbox, but it's great in terms of moving, in terms of the educational awareness. This, body is moving forward, so I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, along those lines, even though we couldn't attend the public meeting, I must have posted that 4 times on my own personal Facebook, just to get it out to the people that follow that, so maybe some of those people that came saw it at different venues.
Thanks all of us doing our thing.
Yeah, and kudos to the county. Would they put that up on their kind of what's happening? We had, well over 100 interactions on that.
Yes. And the videos and all of the posters were sent out via newsletter, but I'll send out some more email blasts for that.
It was great. Like I say, if we could just maybe do the raw video on our Facebook page so we can share it, because people just don't like to click things.
Oh, definitely, I can do
That'd be
that.
awesome. And I said, I know the city's committed to help sharing it. They're like, well, it's just a link. So just having that video would be awesome. So, and we can all share it too. And drive traffic to the flood project board or Facebook page. So cool. Any other questions, comments? I don't see none. We will adjourn at 11:08. Happy Christmas in March.
I know. I think we have a set up.
Hey, I liked it.
December meeting.
Recording stopped.